Welcome back to part 14 of making this plywood tool chest. At the end of 13, we've got our carcass, we've got the runners, we'd cut the tray bases, so the bases in 12mm ply for the upper tray and the lower tray. They're 225 front to back, and obviously they're different lengths because the top one is longer than the bottom one, but we went through that. We also discussed ripping down the stock that was left, the ply that was left, to 110mm for the 18mm thick for the lower tray and 70mm by 12mm thick for the upper tray. Now all I've done is cut them to length this morning. I'm not going to go through everything in real detail. If you can make the carcass, and you can make this part, and it's just making the decisions again and deciding how you want it to look, how you want to join the corners. Do you want to join them, just glue them and pin them? Do you want to countersink screws in and glue them? Do you want to use biscuits? Whatever you decide that you want to use is fine. Now, looking at it, you might say, well, looking from the front, why do I want to see the end grain here of the ply, or as it is there? You've got a choice really. This allows you to then put your fixings in at the side and you never see them. But if you want to take that strip all the way along, and then while you're cutting your dividers, you've got exactly the same size for the end, so it's a repeat cut. That saves a little bit of time. And then join them from the front, particularly if you're using a hidden joint, then go for it. Parts are just sitting on the top. I need to just sand up some of the edges, just make sure everything sits okay. And then literally I'm just going to get the small clamping blocks that we used in the previous episode, mark out with a combination square. I know that's 18, so I can run a line down 9mm, probably put 2 or 3 fixings in. I'll pilot them, don't want the ply to split, so even if I'm putting nails in, and if I nail it, I'll probably use annular nails with the rings on so they grip a little bit more. But I'll show you some fixings now. Again, you can use whatever you want, but these are inch-long annular ring nails. So the little rings that are on there, they just grip well. They're just over 2mm thick shanks. You can measure them with the vernier gauge. And then you can drill a 2mm hole or a 2.5mm hole as a pilot hole, or should I say a clearance hole, for the first piece. And then just so that it doesn't split, if you've got a small drill like a 1 or a 1.5. I'm going to get the lower tray done first. So I've turned the base upside down, marked out some, done the tram line 9mm in. I've marked some holes and just spread them out, and I'm going to drill and countersink at the same time with a 3.5mm clearance hole, so that I can then use the 25mm by 3.5 screws. And I'm just going to get this one glued up and fitted together. On the lower trays, because we've got 18mm sides, we've got the opportunity to counterbore. So it's exactly the same as you did with the carcass. Measure the 9mm in, use your 8mm, force and a bit, go into about that depth to the top of the cutter head, so you're going in about 5-6mm. Then do your clearance hole with a 3.5mm bit, because we're going to use 3.5 gauge screws. And then you can use your little corner blocks, line it all up. I'm sitting it on top of the base, which I've pre-drilled from the other side with countersunk holes. And when I'm happy that it's all right, I'll put my 2mm bit through there. Remember what we did on the carcass, 2 pilot holes. And then I can either say, right, I'm confident with it, so I'll start gluing up as I go, or I can say, right, I'll dry fit all 4 corners, maybe just pop 1 screw in, and then literally then take it apart, glue in, pop the screws in, work relatively quickly, flip it over the other way and fit the base on. So actually the lower one is the more heavy duty one. It's going to have counterboard screws in at the end, and it's going to have 25mm screws holding the base on, whereas when we come to do the upper one, I'll probably pin most of it. So you can see if you've cut it all right, it soon starts to rattle together. I've only put one screw in the other end, so that in case there's any movement, I can just square this up. I'll work my way around. Once I've got the 4 sides done, we're away. Okay, so that's 3 corners up. It's just sitting loose on the base at the minute, just to give me a decent base. But that's all rock solid now. I've just got to do that far corner up here. And then I can flip it over and start piling it, holding it from underneath and get the base screwed on. That's that, all screwed together. I might not even glue that one, because with 18mm and 4 screws in each end, and then it's going to have the bottom panel screwed and glued on, I think it's enough. And then the dividers are going to go in as well. I mean, it's rock solid. It's not going to be carrying much weight anyway. It's overkill really. So I'm going to flip it over now and start putting the base on. But before I flip this over, I don't want to screw the base in if the sides are bowing out or in. So actually, I can measure the internal measurement here, and it's 189mm. So I've just cut from the offcuts that are left a divider, which I'm going to need anyway for the middle. I've cut it at 189, I've put it in, check everything's square. I'm just going to put a clamp from there to there now before I turn it over, just so that it keeps it at a constant squareness all the way around before I fix the bottom on. That's that flipped over now. Now all I've got to do is position the lid so that I've got equal at both ends and equal at the sides. If there's a little bit protruding, I'll clean it up. And I'm not going to glue this either. I'm just going to screw it all together. So I'm going to pilot, drill it with the 2mm drill again, and then pop the 25mm screws into it. That's clamped in position. So I can start pilot drilling it now. And then I'll work my way around and then start popping some screws in. Okay, so I've just scraped, I did put some glue on in the end just for the bottom of the bottom of the tray, the base. So I need to sand it up. It's literally, I've just put the last screw in and cleaned off any glue that was coming out. So I'll give it a try. That's what I had as the front. Good, that's about to clean up as well. So the middle divider is just in there loose. Well, it's tight, but it's not fixed or anything. So that's the base one pretty much done, and I'm just going to repeat for the top one. Obviously, fixings wise, can't counterbore it. There isn't enough thickness of ply, so that'll just be. I might still screw the base on, but it'll probably be more likely all pins. But same process. Right, so the lower tray is in, apart from some cleaning up, which I'll do later. You can see I put a centre line down and I've put 2 pins in front and back to hold the central divider. So that's all secure. What I want to do now is fit the 2 handles. These are Beech flush fitting handles. They're about 60mm across. And actually, a lot of people, so you end up thinking, where should I position them? You know, a quarter of the way in, a half, or, you know, the easiest thing to do is just let your body tell you. walk up to it with 2 pencils in hand and just go as if you were opening the drawer. So if I was opening the drawer here, I'd naturally reach to sort of here. I'm off centre because I know I've got the camera on my back, but I can now measure the gap between those 2 marks, centralise them, and then drill those in a convenient place for me, which I'd be really surprised if that space doesn't actually match up with exactly what I did on the last one. But I'll let you know when I measure it. I've marked them in 220 in from each end. And then you can choose whether you want to centralise the handle over the whole span, 122, or just the front. I've centralised it over the front, which is 110, so I've measured 55 down. The depth that we've got to go to is just under 13 mil, so I've set my vernier to just under 13 mil, so I can use the end as a bit of a depth stop to check when I've gone far enough. And you need to fit these a 48mm Forstner. And that is perfect fit for the handle. So I'm actually going to turn it around now so that I've got the open part facing the outside of the bench, because I'm around the back of the bench, so that I can then clamp it to the bench, and then I'm going to drill that and fit the handles. I forgot to start filming there, so let's go again. Drill this first one. It's not deep enough yet, but we'll just check. Little way to go yet. Okay, let's check. Ooh, probably another mil. If you go too far, well, not as in too far and through the other side, but deeper, it doesn't really make any difference. That's it. So I'll just probably do, you can see it's just not quite going down there. So maybe where I've been leaning to one side. So I'll just go a little bit further. Love it. So I'll do the second one now. And that one's a nice fit. So get that glued in. That's the handles done. So I'll have a clean up now, glue those 2 in, and that's the lower tray done. Well, I pushed on and I got both trays done. So lower tray's done with handles fitted, upper tray's done. Both need a bit of a clean up, and I'll wax the runners and such like. The top, I've just left those in, as I said on previous video. I can sort of lay tools out, move those. I've also got a couple of, I think 3 more spare dividers cut, just in case I want to put them in. But that's pretty good now. I'll put the camera down so I can, the bottom of the handles sliding well. The top one will need a bit of adjustment, but it's still fine at the minute. That sits nice. So that's it for part 14. We've got all the trays fitted, and really there's only surface finishing, which I'll come to. That'll be a video of options for surface finishing the outside and the inside. Then I might do sort of a bits and pieces catch up on things that I know I missed, and also maybe some of the tool holders that go in the lid. So I'll probably do the bits and pieces in part 15, and then part 16 we'll just surface finish it and get it painted and get some tools in it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in part 15.